looking into
the more Korean-looking guy.
I mean, I'm trying to help the audience, you know.
Yeah.
Anyway, Stephano, as I was going to say, last foreigner left. He's got a lot of support in the audience, I think.
Yeah.
And I would love to see Stephano pull up final. There's so much history between those guys in the Lone Star Clash. So that's kind of where my heart is right now. But as you said, Jaedong, phenomenal player.
Sure.
If Stephano would win this, probably would be an upset.
Well, guys, we're going to test it. Axel Toss said there's a lot of support for these players in the audience, so let's see if that's true. In the top left-hand corner, hailing from Korea, it's Evil Geniuses Jaedong.
And his opponent, in the top right-hand location of Merry-Go-Round, Ladder Edition, I present to you the blue Zerg player representing Evil Geniuses as well, the last foreigner remaining in Lone Star Clash and the defending champion. He is Stephano.
And I said this, well, I didn't say this like officially, but I was thinking to myself, because the brackets weren't released till today. And when you have 3 of the 8 players from your team, you're very likely to get some team kills. But I thought to myself, how bad would it be if Stephano got his absolute worst matchup? It would be ZVZ against Jaedong. You know, again, I'm kind of famous for gushing over Jaedong. I feel deservedly so, but to some people it makes them sick.
I share in your gushing.
Sure. But I think what we can all agree on, Jaedong's ZVZ is actually, and has always been, since back at Brood War, the best. And if you don't think it's the best, then certainly you'd agree, like top 3 world, all time. Just absolutely amazing ZVZ. And Stephano has always been pretty good ZVZ, like he's gotten it done. I think back to his IPL victory where he beat a Zerg by the name of, I think it was Lucky at the time. This is when foreigners just didn't beat Koreans, but Stephano kind of made a name for himself off of a ZVZ there. So he's always been able to do it. It's not a question of, I mean, you don't win the tournaments that Stephano has not winning a matchup. You know, you just don't do that. But this is a monumental task. So let's get beyond the bias, you know, that who I want to win, who I don't, who you want to win, who you don't. Let's get into more of this. If Stephano can do this, if he can sit down across from Jaedong on a meaningful stage in front of an awesome audience and take a best of 5, not even a short series where like cheese can happen, a best of 5, what an amazing statement that is to his legacy. That'd be absolutely incredible.
It would certainly be something that we would all remember going into the future. And I want to actually kind of hit your brain a little bit with that point you made earlier. Jaedong's prowess in ZVZ, as it's been said and as it's been known. What kind of contributes to that? What is he so good at? Is it his control of the lings and banelings? Is it just his ability to read? Is it his like supreme multitasking stuff? Is it a mix of all of it? Well, what's kind of the main thing that makes Jaedong so good at this matchup?
Jaedong is a product of his own success. He's won and done so well for so long that he's been in every position you can imagine. He's been up against the ropes in a best of 3, a best of 5, a best of 7, so on and so forth. He knows what build to call on. He knows what kind of read to make. Of course, he's had less experience in StarCraft 2, coming into it a little bit late. So only, you know, a couple of years under his belt, whereas in Brood War it was 10 years. But even then, when I watch his ZVZ, I just see him making calls 2 or 3 moves into the future, or about moves, excuse me, 2 to 3 moves into the future. And he's a bit of an amazing player in that regard. Stephano on the flip side though, and what he poses as a challenge, is Stephano is just kind of like the idiot savant. Like he controls things really well. He also sees things into the future, but for him it's almost more of like an understanding of the game as opposed to making reads off of actual things he scouts. In fact, Stephano was kind of famous earlier on in his career for never scouting, having very limited information and still making the right call on a pretty regular basis. He's always been able to do that.
So an interesting clash in styles and histories and backgrounds for both of these two guys. Certainly going to produce us some awesome StarCraft 2. As far as what's happening right now, nothing too crazy. We're seeing Baneliness similarly typed for both these guys. And right now, it's the game of drones. As far as how many speedlings are going to get out, how many speedlings is your opponent making, how much is your opponent investing into an aggressive attack, how are they sacrificing their economy? Because if your opponent is sacrificing their economy, you probably should do the same so you don't die in the early game. So it's the game of how many drones are you taking out and how many Zerglings and Banelings are you creating?
Well, I'm already seeing a pretty good situation here for, well, I mean, it's a seesaw back and forth, so I need to stop committing the sin of judging too harshly in a ZVZ in the early stage because it's so back and forth. But Stephano shows off the Baneling Nest at the front of his natural. Jaedong reads into that and tries to apply pressure, but has fewer drones. And of course, once he gets over there and sees that there's already 4 pre-made Banelings and a Spine Crawler going down, there's no hope for any kind of aggression there, so he backs off and makes drones as well. They're both, as you said, a game of drones, just kind of going back and forth, trying to feel each other out. And I really like the lane Baneling stage for that purpose. If one player makes a mistake, the other can capitalize.
Yep, and that's certainly a fun thing to watch. It's such an interesting dynamic that's not necessarily present in any other matchup. And again, showing how diverse this game truly is. Right now, we're seeing both these players posture. Something I also want to point out really quick, especially for your new players at home, is the Overlord positioning for these guys. It's so important in ZVZ to really be able to spot exactly what your opponent is churning out of their base at exactly what time, so you can know how to respond. These players will play, they'll have those Overlords positioned, they'll see what their opponent is making, and then they'll respond in time so they can make, not over-make units, I should say. So you players at home, get those Overlords positioned correctly so you can really finely tune your response to whatever your opponent throws at you.
I think that's a very good point, Axel Toss. And, you know, we can kind of see both players, if you look at that mini-map, very intermingled red and blue all over there as they both are trying to seek out that information. Oh, I said red and blue, actually. Is it? It might be purple.
Seems red and blue.
Anyways, red and blue.
Red and blue.
If I'm losing my ability to read color right now, that'd be pretty bad.
Red
Third
and blue
base
makes purple, so.
That's actually true. Third base for Stephano goes down a little bit earlier. And one thing to mention about merry-go-round is the third's fairly precarious. There's no good third. I actually like the third potential for Jaedong a little bit better. He can expand away from his opponent, or he could expand towards him, but that just, it always makes it very uncomfortable. It makes like one fight very decisive. But Jaedong's not going for a third. He's got a lot of roaches coming out here. And if you look at that production tab, it's 17 roaches to the nil. Stephano does not actually have, he does have a Roach Warren, but he hasn't produced any just yet. He's in a lot of trouble.
Yeah, he's just now starting to make roaches. Jaedong coming across now here. Baneling's running into the roaches, not something you necessarily want. And Stephano might be caught off guard a little bit by these roaches. Jaedong investing a lot into this attack. And let's see, he doesn't have any upgrades, but he's just attacking straight up with slow roaches.
He's got his own Banelings though behind this, and Stephano's late to the party trying to produce Spine Crawlers. He has roaches coming out, but they're inferior in numbers. His own Banelings are going to pop out, and if they can connect with a large number of Banelings, that would be a start. But as I say that, no, the Banelings are getting their connection. They're going into the drones. Jaedong dealing critical damage, and it looks like, ladies and gentlemen, we may not have Swarm Host this time, as Stephano was caught with his pants down, so to speak.
So Jaedong just kind of creating a build, or not necessarily creating a build, but utilizing a build that is just hitting at this perfect time where Stephano literally only had Lings and Banelings when these roaches were going across the map, and that's not something you want to have happen in this situation. It might have been a response to the faster third base, but definitely a designed build here from Jaedong going straight to his opponent's main base. And honestly, there's not much left for Stephano to do here.
No, I mean, even behind this, the Ling is clean out the third. He's not mining from the natural. If Stephano somehow is able to, and it looks like he's gaining a foothold in the main. And if you look behind this, Jaedong is still producing, but he did drone up behind that. So he's just making like defensive drones to be responsive to what then could come in response from Stephano. It's massive, a gigantic supply advantage. The advantage that Stephano did have was that third, if you can call it that, and an upgrade advantage, but those things are gone now.
Yeah, and as far as options are concerned, Stephano's having to not only make drones to try to catch up to his opponent, but he's also having to make units to defend against a potential attack. And it looks like he also wants to do some counter aggression, which is natural considering when you're behind, if you leave your opponent to their devices, especially an opponent like Jaedong, then you're going to have an insurmountable, it's going to be very difficult to come back. So, trying to have some presence across the map, but he's just going to have to back away because that is just where the game state is right now.
And he is pulling back because, again, both these players deserve to give each other the best effort that they possibly can. But for all intents and purposes, it's a 50 supply differential, and at sub 15 minutes, that's devastating. If this were later in the game, 3 or 4 base economy, maybe a remax happens pretty quick. Maybe there's critical tech out there like, well, he's got Swarmos or he has Infestors, and you can be behind in supply. But as it is right now, it's just a numbers game. Jaedong has more. Stephano is ahead in upgrade, but that's about to go away as well. He's got a third hatch, which means he has access to 33% more production. And the third hatch of Stephano is once again going to get canceled. So at some point, you have to look at this and just say, GG, basically.
And I think that's going to be happening in the next 30 seconds or so as Jaedong is Well.
Oh, geez. He's right outside the net. He's going to come all the way back home. I mean, all right, these players are determined to make me into a liar. Jaedong could really just rally it. Okay, well, that's the weirdest GG I've ever seen in my life. It's
it's okay.
That was actually 1/5 of Jaedong's army, and Stephano's like, you know what? You have roaches. Good game. But it is what it is. Jaedong takes the first game of the decisive timing attack, opting for the later layer, the no third, and instead shows up with 17 roaches when his opponent has none. That's not going to be good.
You know, a lot of it comes down to Overlord positioning, but I think that's a situation where Jaedong kind of was hiding what he was doing as far as keeping his roaches in his main and then pouncing in a split second. In a situation where Stephano just didn't have the devices there to actually appropriately respond to what was coming across the map. Jaedong utilizing a great timing attack, and since I have the opportunity.
You can't escape now, camera.
Stephano is down, but he's got some fans in the audience. This is actually made by Austin. Look at that. Austin in the audience, you're awesome.
That is really cool.
I think that's Stephano. Yeah. Stephano riding a Storm Host there. And there's kind of a StarCraft element to this a bit. It has its own style. So shout out to Austin in the audience. And if y'all have artwork,